One of the many challenges that Game Masters have is being able to understand or read a monster's stat block on the fly in order to use it in your campaign against your players. So let's talk about the monster stat blocks and understanding that a little bit better. Hey fellow Game Masters, I'm Richard Quiner and welcome back to the Daily D20, your daily dose of all things tabletop role-playing games, helping you build your world and master your game. And today, we're gonna do a little behind-the-scenes work with these monsters that we've been talking about over the last several weeks, and we're gonna talk about the stat blocks that give us the information we need in order to use these monsters in our games, against our characters, whatever we might be using them for. It's important to understand what these stat blocks have for us and how we can find the information more quickly and easily. For this video, I'm going to be using the stat block for the Aboleth, which we haven't talked about this creature very much. It's kind of a tough one to get into, it has a long history, but as far as stat blocks go, it has a lot of information there, and it has a good chance to show everything that a stat block can offer to a creature. So let's get into that. The first part of a stat block, you have the basic information. You have the name of the creature, the size of the creature, the type of creature. If you remember the creature types video the other week, it talks about those. And then it also includes the alignment of the creature. So of course there's the name, the size. Creatures come in different sizes in Dungeons & Dragons. You have tiny, small, medium, large, huge, gargantuan. You can look in the rulebook to see what the different sizes actually mean. When it comes to the creature type, you can revert to the video I did about types of creatures to see what they are. In this case, the Aboleth is considered an aberration, but if you remember from the other video, it means it's not exactly a well-known creature in the world. It's kind of an alien type appearing creature that has some weird powers that don't make a lot of sense. And of course, the alignment is a general kind of average alignment of these types of creatures. It doesn't mean the creature has to have that alignment, but it's usually the case in the Dungeons & Dragons world. The next chunk of the monster stat block has to do with the basic stats of the character, meaning armor class, hit points, and movement speeds. The armor class is kind of figured out similar to the characters, where each monster has an armor class that the players will have to roll to see if they actually hit the character or not. Hit points is pretty self-explanatory. That's the amount of damage that this creature would need to take before it dies. And the speed, this lists all the different types of speed that the creature can have. For the Aboleth, it mentions movement, just regular speed, which is 10 feet, but then it also mentions swim speed. Some creatures will include flying speed and stuff like that. So you can learn how these characters move just by looking at this basic stat block. Next up on the stat block are the ability scores. Now these ability scores mirror the player character's ability scores by having a score and a modifier that goes along with it, and it's listed out pretty simply where you have the ability score and then followed by parentheses with the modifier in it. But one thing you'll notice, especially here on the Aboleth, they don't exactly follow the same rules as the player characters. A player character, in order to have an ability score over a 20, needs to have a special magic item or something that will boost their ability score, otherwise they're maxed at 20. Where here the Aboleth, the strength alone is 21, which means they're not exactly following the same rules that the player characters might run into. Next up on the monster stat block, we'll find its proficiency section. Well, that's what I'm calling it, at least, because it shares what skills and what abilities this creature is proficient with, meaning if it is proficient in certain saving throws or certain skills, they will be listed here in the proficiency section. You'll notice on this, the creature is proficient in a couple things, a couple skills, and it gives a certain number for those that don't exactly match the ability score. That's because it is adding on the proficiency bonus for this creature. Anything that's not listed in the proficiency section is treated the same as the ability scores that it pertains to. So if the creature is not proficient in, say, stealth, you'll still just use the dexterity ability score as its stealth roll when needed. So in the case of the Aboleth, it is proficient in history and perception, so it lists the bonuses that it will get for history and perception. This section also includes several senses, such as dark vision, or if the creature has true sight, different ways that the creature can see and interact with the world around it. And in this case, it also includes the stat for its exceptionally high passive perception. Just below the senses is the languages, where it will list out any languages that the creature can speak or read, and any rules that go along with those. And just below that is the challenge rating. Now the challenge rating is a number that specifies how difficult this creature would be to beat for certain level characters. For example, the Aboleth is a challenge rating of 10. That means it would take 4 level 10 player characters to beat this creature and have an okay fight. So if the challenge rating is much higher than the player level, then the creature would be a much more difficult fight. If it's much lower, then it would be a much more easier fight. This number pertains directly to a party of 4 adventurers of that level. So if you end up having an adventure party of, say, 8, you will need to find creatures that are a much higher challenge rating in order to challenge those players with a good fight. It's kind of a lot of math that goes into it. In the next couple of weeks, we will be talking about creating your own creature and understanding the challenge rating system a little more, but as a baseline, you can understand that if there's 4 players of a certain level, this is the challenge rating you will want. But as a baseline information, if you have 4 players and they're all the same level, it would be pretty smart to give them a creature to fight against that is the same challenge rating as their player level. The next section on this monster stat block are more traits or innate special abilities that this creature might have just from being the creature. In the case of the aboleth, you can see that they are amphibious. They can breathe both air and water. They also have a special mucus ability that means they can poison or disease different creatures that touch them, and they have what's called probing telepathy, which means the aboleth can find out the deeper, darker secrets of a player if the player tries to get into the mind of the aboleth through telepathy. The next section on the monster stat blocks are the actions. These are the physical things that the creature can do during its turn in combat situations or just in general. Usually it's based around attacks that it has. In this case, the aboleth has a multi-attack, which is a very common action that monsters can have. They can attack multiple times on their turn. This evens the playing field when it's one versus many. This also outlines the weapons that this aboleth may have. In this case, it uses tentacles to attack mainly, and it outlines the attack bonus that the aboleth will get, along with the damage that will be dealt by the tentacles and any other effects that it might have. And as some special bonuses of the aboleth, it also has its tail that it can use as a weapon on some occasions, and it has a special ability called Enslave, which basically means it can charm another creature. The rules are all written in the stat blocks, and so when you're reading up on these different abilities that the creatures have, you can see what they can actually do. The next section is the last one, and it's not something you're going to see very often in monster stat blocks unless it's coming to a boss fight, but these are called legendary actions. These are actions or abilities that the creature may use outside of their turn in combat. This makes it a lot easier when one creature is fighting against 5 players, where they can take extra turns after another player has taken their turn. They can get into the fight a little more, and it evens the playing field a lot for that creature. The details of how to use the legendary actions are different for each creature. Some have certain amount of times they can use it per round. Some have a certain amounts of times they can use it per the encounter. You'll really have to read up on these legendary actions and find out what they're able to do. In the case of the aboleth, they have 3 different legendary actions they're able to do. One is to detect or try and find something. One is to attack with their tail, which is a much stronger attack than with their tentacles. And the last one is they can deal damage to a charmed player character. So using mental psychic damage, they can hurt somebody with it. These are all legendary actions, so the aboleth is able to use these even when it's not their turn in combat. So that is the basic of the monster stat blocks. Moving forward, we'll be able to look at these a little more. We're going to learn how to make some characters and fill out these stat blocks for our characters that we want to create, or the monsters that we want to create. And now you can see it's really not that hard. It's a pretty straightforward system that they put in place, but it's easy to pick up a stat block, read it over once, and then be able to run it in combat. They made it that easy. If you like this video, I invite you to go ahead and hit that like button, and of course subscribe to the channel for more videos just like this one every single day. And of course, fellow Game Masters, I've been Richard Quiner. Thank you for watching.